Next question. Can you tell a bit more about how QRL will offer quantum resistance to Ethereum and how you guys are planning to expand the service to other blockchains? We covered Ethereum pretty much with Enclave, but maybe you could talk a little bit about compatibility, the differences between, OCaml and the other.
So really, at its essence, what the Enclave system is, it's a multi-signature hybrid wallet where you have your conventional transaction signature, which is quantum insecure, but you also have to append on a second quantum secure signature using xmss, which is what we use to power QRL. So that's the difference. I chose Ethereum because that is the most mature smart contract platform. It's got a huge market cap, and a lot of crypto assets and DeFi assets are based in that ecosystem. We'll pick up a huge potential percentage of crypto assets that we can secure with. If we find success, we may move to other blockchains. It would, of course, have to be other blockchains which have smart contract capabilities. So that does limit things a little bit. But there are certainly other platforms which are somewhat successful, which have the ability for us to move that project over there. It does make things a bit more complicated. We're going to start off with a simple service that's audited, just like we did before the QRL mainnet launch, that we're confident is going to work. So we're going to start with Ethereum, and we'll move from there in the future.
Sounds good. So additional blockchains could have similar functionality. Time will tell.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question. I'm still trying to fully understand Merkle trees and hash-based functions as a whole, so this might be nonsense. I was wondering the possibility of companies' websites who use a Merkle tree for data can use xmss the same way in place of it on the QRL's blockchain. Like for Keybase to be completely trustless with theirs, or a GitHub type site for a trustless version control, or also to create a type of BitTorrent on the chain. Is there a need for any of those to be decentralized and would be beneficial to be on QRL?
Yeah, so I think what it's sort of driving at is sort of decentralization, perhaps of notarization of data. I mean, there are projects which decentralize the storage of data that you can already, using our web wallet tools section, you can already notarize a document. So yes, that is possible, and that's something we already offer. I think the next part of the question, we're talking about trustless version control. And again, if you're storing data in a chain that's publicly accessible anywhere in the world and verifiable, then and you're able to securely put data in that chain, then yeah, you can do these things. But it requires the back end of GitHub to interact with the chain. We did actually make a proof of concept code signing tool. Well, I did in fact, which a third-party service which signed code commits on GitHub from your QRL address. So it's definitely possible. The next bit was about BitTorrent. I don't know a great deal about BitTorrent, but I think if you're storing data in publicly accessible and verifiable fashion on a public blockchain, then you can build many things into that. But I have to skip over that because I'm not too familiar with BitTorrent. Is there any need for these to be centralized, or would it be beneficial to the QRL? I think the more things that are built into a project, the more use cases, the more widely used the project is, the better. I think that just comes down to how are public blockchains valued. I think that's an evolving dramatically over the coming years as more and more use cases for smart contract platforms become prevalent. Great question.
It is. You brought up value. I'm going to throw a little zinger at you. It's a question I just thought of, and I'll try and answer it, to be fair as well. This month, I believe it was this month, the market cap of all the ERC20s recently on Ethereum recently exceeded the market cap of the underlying blockchain itself. That was I think within the past couple weeks. Blockchains that are running on top of the blockchain to have a higher market cap. Do you think that's an advantage to the blockchain or a disadvantage? Do you think that's a goal?
Well, I think what's important is that the network obviously the token that powers the network through the consensus mechanism has to have some value. So you can have lots of tokens and stable coins and various different decentralized finance tokens with colossal value obviously it's pretty crucial that the network itself runs and that the funds that are created and minted to maintain the network have value. Now, I think, Ethereum and any blockchain network that has tokens or smart contract functionality, transactions have fees, and those fees are generally paid in base unit or base token for that chain. So I don't think it matters too much if there's colossal values that exceed the market cap of the base token, as long as there's something driving it. So if you've got a lot of commercial activity on a blockchain for other projects, it doesn't really matter what their market cap is, as long as there's sufficient transaction fees coming through to keep the whole thing going. So if you need to own the base token to be able to use these other projects, which is what you need to do at the moment, then everything's fine. I think if you're asking me, does that mean that the underlying token are undervalued? Then that's another question. I don't know.
It's an interesting relationship, right? Because both the blockchain, the underlying blockchain itself, and the ERCs on top of them run in this symbiotic relationship,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Is there an argument that the ratio of market cap, the disparity between the two at some points goes from symbiotic to parasitic? I'm not really sure. I don't know because I don't think that we've seen that before. I don't think we've seen this witness before. And I asked a question that, ironically, I'm stumbling over myself a little bit, but I guess I don't really know the answer because they need each other. Smart contracts are what were instrumental in bringing Ethereum to the mainstream consciousness. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, theoretically, it is possible that you could pay for transactions with with tokens or other. It doesn't necessarily need to be the base token which provides the fee. You can make it very complicated, can't you? I think at the moment it's an evolving situation. It'll be very interesting to see how that progresses. The sort of underlying question is, how many blockchains will exist in the next 10 years? That's another question. Is it going to converge onto just one or two or a handful? That's yet to be decided, isn't it? We don't know.
Yeah, what blockchains and what type of blockchains, right?
Absolutely.
This is under the category of communication. Obviously not asking about details or topics of discussions, but have there been or are there any conversations between the QRL team and somebody from Zoom since the acquisition of Keybase?
Yeah, we're not able to disclose any conversations with anyone. It should be pretty obvious to anyone asking the question, unfortunately, that private communications between different teams and projects remain private. And the reason for that is we have to sign non-disclosure agreements. If we talk to an exchange, or any project about anything, before that conversation happens, an NDA comes along, we all have to sign it. So I'm afraid it's a bit of a non-answer, but the answer is can't answer. Yeah.
Fair enough. Have you directly talked to Vitalik at some point in the past about QRL ideas? Have you contacted him? Is there anything you can say on this?
So actually, I can say on this one, it is years ago now. Did have text-based discussions with him in 2016 about QRL. Gosh, that's a long time ago now. I haven't subsequently tried to contact him. I don't know him. We're not on familiar terms. I think he probably is aware of the QRL project still. I think dinged on Twitter on at least one occasion about it by the community. Probably is worth contacting him and letting him know about Enclave. I think whether he'll be particularly happy to hear that there's yet another gas-hungry smart contract joining the project, I don't know.
Well, Vitalik, if you're listening and you're out there and you do know about our project, don't be shy. Feel free to tweet us at QR Ledger on Twitter, and we can strike up a conversation. Happy to do that. Next question. When will there be the first financial report coming out, and on the status of the foundation, and what topics would it cover?
Yeah, good question. The project is funded by this foundation, and we'll be coming out with a report at some point this year. We're talking about the financial standing of the project and our runway, and how long we think funds will last. Part of the reason why we've been a bit sort of slow to come out with this is that we are in conversations with other projects and organizations, for example, exchanges, etc. So the project is funded by a Swiss foundation, still well funded with plenty of runway to go. We will have a report coming out, a little bit sluggish on that, but we will have a report coming out which will detail the current financial standing and how much runway it remains. But there should be no concerns on that. The project has plenty of road to go.
So financial report at some point in the future.
Well, soon. It'll be soon, yeah. It'll be soon.
Soon, at some point in the future. Even better. All right, so next question. How long can QRL continue to develop with existing funds? Are there funds for marketing, exchange listing, or maybe a market maker?
Yeah, so we currently are funded on our roadmap for several years. I think we have already announced we're looking for a member of the team to direct in a marketing capacity. Exchange listing, part of the reason why we're careful with what we've put out there is that exchange listing is, well, it's a negotiation, and there's a significant cost attached to every listing. So yes, we're funded for that. Watch this space is probably the simplest way to answer that one. Yeah.
If you think QRL needs to be on more exchanges, what is the plan for listing QRL on more?
Yeah, so again, great question. The more exchanges a project is listed on, the more potential liquidity is available. The wider the access to the project. We are very aware of that, as every blockchain project and space is aware of that. It's not as simple as you just knock on the door of an exchange and ask to be listed. There's a process, and I can't go into any detail. With our hands and tongues are tied, but there is a lot of things happening behind the scenes. Unfortunately, I can't say any more than that.
Next question. I believe a large US exchange can bring awareness to QRL, especially once proof of stake is added. What is the barrier to entry for exchanges? Integration difficulty, costs? I think you touched a little bit on the costs, and obviously there's some geofencing around that occurred. I think it was last year. Maybe you can help answer some of those questions.
Yeah, so I think this is a complex issue for many projects in the space. The question really is barrier to entry, several factors at play: regulatory, cost, integration difficulty. The other thing is that there's almost a chicken and egg situation with exchange listing. The size of your community will dictate to an exchange how much financial activity you bring to them. We're a small project doing our best to build ourselves up exchange to exchange. It's a process. Plus, what isn't helpful is that we use a fairly bizarre cryptography system. It's not used in the project space, which is an added headache for any exchange that wants to list us. There's no getting around that. We have had to build a lot of the tools for the exchanges that have added us. There's many factors at play. I don't want to go into them in any more detail than that, really, but this is a process that takes time.
Yeah, integration with exchanges, I think, is inherently difficult anyway, with the amount of collaboration that needs to take place and contracts and agreements and NDAs. I think that it's inherently complex. I think there's several different projects working on streamlining that adoption and that process to make things faster. But that is likely another rabbit hole of a topic.
The one thing that we have been talking about at the team is, one, we have Enclave launched. That does is it brings a new pool of QRL on Ethereum into play. We think that will be much, much easier from a technical perspective for exchanges to integrate. So that we're cautiously hopeful that will actually enable us to become a much easier value proposition for an exchange to integrate. So I think, again, watch this space. Things are evolving. We're confident that more exchanges will list up in the future.
Next question. Did you or the foundation get a legal opinion if QRL can be considered a security? And if not, is one being prepared? It goes on a little bit about more exchanges, the we need more exchanges situation.
Yeah, so obviously, as every crypto project in the space, we have legal expenses, and one of the expenses has been obtaining a legal opinion, as the question states. I don't want to talk specifically about any one exchange that we're listed on, because we have private conversations ongoing. Can't go into that. Can't delve into this any further. But the answer is yes. Legal opinions have been obtained.
I think that's fair. What do you think is the best way to secure, convert, and upgrade precious and vulnerable Bitcoins into quantum hacking resistant QUANTA on quantum resistant ledger? A user is asking for the easiest answer, leading straight forward to security and peace of mind.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting question. Is the question asking how you move your Bitcoins onto QRL? Is that what
it was reading to me as what's the best way to secure and convert? Well, I think secure is probably convert Bitcoins into QRL.
Yeah, so obviously in QRL you can go to an exchange and swap one crypto for another. I mean, the other thing I'm thinking of reading this is that obviously on Ethereum there are more wrapped BTC than on the Lightning Network. And so just as with any other token, Enclave should be able to potentially lock BTC in that way.
www.theqrl.org/markets has a list of all the active exchanges.
Yeah, so there's quite a few exchanges on there now, and there'll be more coming in the future.
The QRL Ledger team is so small relative to other projects in crypto, yet has accomplished so much in the past 2 years. How has the team managed this with such comparatively few resources? It almost sounds complimentary, Peter.
It's almost positive.
Almost positive.
Well, thank you for the question. And actually, it's 3 years now, not 2 years. I think the short answer to this is that you don't need to raise $2 billion like Telegram did to make a crypto project. I mean, small teams can build excellent products. This is at its heart, it's an open source development project. You don't need a giant team of developers to make innovative and revolutionary projects. I mean, this comes back to sort of the Silicon Valley thing. Two guys in a garage can make a company that can change the world. I mean, you don't need lots of people. You just need dedicated and very skilled people. We're very fortunate in our project. We've got excellent developers. World-leading cryptography advice. I hope that answers it. I mean, and even further than that, to say that we're actually our funding is a drop in the ocean compared to many other projects in the space, but we have managed that well, and we have plenty of runway left to run. So, yeah.
I think that's a really good answer, Peter. While you're talking, what I'm thinking is we're in the process, as you said, of hiring a marketing person. There hasn't been a tremendous amount of advocacy prior to this. I'd like to think that that's based on the fundamentals and people connecting the dots of the use case for the project itself and its purpose for existence. That's how I came to the project, is I connected these dots, and I was looking to see if, I was looking at the time to see what existed. There were not very many players at all. So I'd like to think the use case by itself is foundational to the reason for the success so far. Next question is asking about Adam. What happened to Adam as he was previously in charge of marketing?
Well, actually, Adam was our business strategist. Actually, he wasn't strictly in charge of marketing for the team. Perhaps we've been guilty in our project of really focusing on the technical side of things, and I think we're fairly confident that every member of the team would probably admit to that we are excited by the tech, and we're excited by the code, and we're excited by the idea, and we're excited about building it, and perhaps not so excited about tooting our horn. So as you said before, Adam's moving on to greener pastures. I wish him well, but we are looking for an in-house marketeer. So that search has begun, and obviously we'll keep you updated as it progresses.
If someone listening feels like they might be a good candidate for that role, what should they do?
Yeah, so they should email info@theqrl.org, and we'll get back in touch.
All right, sounds good. How will you be dealing with potential claims for migrating unmigrated tokens? The last info on it was that it'll be looked on it by a case-by-case basis. Will this continue, or will there be any sharp cutoff after which no tokens can be migrated anymore? Is it legally possible to have a sharp cutoff? I know we've talked about this since within the team and a little bit even on this call so far, but go ahead.
Before we had a largely automated process for migrating tokens across, but now we're down to the less than 2% have yet to migrate. So it's becoming a very small number of QRL that have migrated across. And we expect some of those will never migrate across and may have been lost previously. So as I said, the project will run for years in the future. So that support structure will run, and as people are still coming forward every now and again with an occasional migration or late migration, we'll continue to support that process. It really is a handful of people, we think now. I'd say this is almost a non-issue now.
The next question, assuming a situation that there's, let's say, 50 million free mainnet quanta with 15 million ICO tokens unmigrated, and in a few years' time, someone who bought them in the ICO wants them migrated, but no one is sure whether quantum computers are powerful enough to crack Ethereum, and the QRL ICO tokens to be migrated have not yet been scrubbed from old burn addresses. I think so that's a hypothetical scenario. And I'm reading the question is there a snapshot of all the Ethereum burn addresses so that there is a way of tracking migrated and unmigrated QRL ICO tokens? And will it be prepared for this potential future situation? That's the first question.
You can answer that one straight away. I think this is a pretty easy one to answer. Really. I think between 1% and 2% of QRL has not been migrated. So 98 point something percent has been migrated already. So So I think the question alluded to about 15 million not being migrated. It's actually around a million out of 72 million-ish that hasn't been migrated across. So it's a tiny amount now. So we don't think that's a major issue. That said, we do still run some back-end scripts which track the contract and we will continue to do so. So we really don't think this is an issue. I mean, at this stage, I would expect that by the end of the year, everyone that's going to migrate across will have probably migrated across. We will support that process and whilst the project is still running. And there's a further sort of aspect to this question, which was asking about the perception of stability if we let a lot of tokens migrate across, and the vast majority of tokens already have migrated across. So yeah, I don't think it's really an issue of denying migration or any legal sort of claims arising from that process. I don't think we need a hard cutoff date to stop the migration process. There's so few coins that haven't migrated across now that I think just as time runs on, by the end of the year, it's highly unlikely that anyone will not yet have migrated across who is going to. Yeah.
So to bring some clarity to that, I think sometime in 2019, I think that there was a hard cutoff date that was published. I don't recall what it was. Would you say it's fair that moving forward, migration of old ERC20s pre-mainnet is best effort? Moving forward, we'll do the best that we can, but this 2 years into mainnet, at some point, it feels like a guarantee it can't exist into perpetuity.
No, I agree. But let's say more than 98% of people have migrated across. It is a tiny proportion of coins that haven't moved across. It's a fairly simple process to migrate. It's just need to generate a burn address. So we are happy to support that process. Anyone who's interacting with our team, certainly via our email, would be aware that we're fairly brisk at coming back to people with that.